I'm Ronnie Camille, and this is Entering Tyngsborough. In this episode, we look at a proposal for a new fire station, now headed to town meeting after more than 2 decades of discussion surrounding the former Winslow School property and the future need of the fire department. We talk with Fire Chief Wes Russell and Select Person Adele Coughlin about why the project has reached this point and what challenges the current station presents today, and what residents should understand as the town prepares for an important decision. Chief, Chairperson Coughlin, welcome to Tyngsborough's front porch.
Glad to be here.
Thank you.
So, for residents who may be following this closely now, why has the town reached a point where a new fire station is seriously being considered?
So I guess I'll say that we've been at that point for some time. We first started talking about a new fire station, I think, 20 years ago. Certainly it was a priority of the previous chief and the Board of Fire Engineers before my appointment, and since my appointment in 2016, it has been the top priority of the Board of Fire Engineers then, and myself in dealing with the select board and town management since then. So it's not a new thing. Just, as usual, there are other priorities that have taken precedent, and we're really at a point now where we're in a critical need to do something.
So, Chief, what are the biggest limitations of the current fire station right now, operationally and long-term, for you and the department?
Yeah. The two big things are the size and the health and safety of the firefighters working in the station, living in the station. 3 different architectural analysis have determined, based on the size of our department, that we should be in a 20,000 square foot building. Our current building is 5,000 square feet. And I think that, that's hard for residents to grasp when they look at the artist rendition or the layout of the new station and they compare it to what we see now. It does look huge, but that's where we're at these days. And I urge them to compare to fire stations in other communities and what they look like. And, the other, of many issues, the other issues are just the functionality of the station and the lack of any opportunity, because of the size, to limit the amount of exposure firefighters have to carcinogens and hazardous materials that may be present in equipment and gear and that kind of thing.
And so, the current building, what makes it more difficult to, operate in?
Well, if you think of any commercial building that you would go to, whether it's this building that we're in today or an industrial or retail building, there's 3 basic separations, right? You have your operational space where business is conducted. You have your administrative space where admin happens, finance, and then you have staff areas where staff either, if it's just a lunch or a break area or other areas. In our current building, there is no separation of those 3 areas, just from a basic commercial building standpoint. Beyond that, we don't meet any legal requirements for ADA or OSHA. The building code for a fire station built today requires a category, they call it a risk category 4 for any kind of critical infrastructure. And the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, their standards have been updated, 10 years ago. And all of those things combined really make it so that our building needs to be designed in a way that functionally does a job, protects the firefighters, and meets all of those standards.
Adele, what has the committee learned, during this whole process? And you were appointed on the committee, you've kind of formed it together, spoken to the experts. What have you guys learned that has reinforced the need to get a new building rather than patch up what we have now or work with what we have?
So I think that the committee also has learned that there have been other communities that have gone down this path and have been successful in the completion and building of a new fire station. And when you just said patch together what we have already, we've already done that, right? And so that is something that I learned early on. When I took when I got elected in the role of select board and I met with Chief, I got the fire station tour. And the fire station has been already cobbled together enough that it was very eye-opening for me. When I went out and back, for example, I saw this big fire truck that I thought should be undercover somewhere, but we just don't have that capacity. And it was also a very eye-opening experience, understanding that separation that is needed. The Fire Station Building Committee has has some great experts on there, and they've been successful in working and talking through with the architects. But even with myself and the residents at large, we've learned a lot in this process. So much so that I wish, and we've tried to convey with the citizens of the town, and hopefully we have been doing a good job with that. But I just think that we can't continue the way things have been going with the current fire station. And I know I'm guilty of in the past driving by there 100 times a year, right? And just like, oh, there's the fire station. But when you get into
it's a cute little building.
It is, but it's just it's kind of met the needs of the community way back. So
what's the one thing that when you walked through in the first time that kind of just caught you, besides the apparatus in the back? Was there anything that kind of took you by surprise when they gave you the tour?
So when I first walked in, I felt bad because there were some firemen eating their lunch, and I felt like I was imposing on them. They were very warm and welcoming, but I felt like I was intruding because you walk in and there they are. And then I think too, downstairs, one of the times that I'd gone, there was a flood, and the fireman was like, getting rid of the water. Another time, I've only been 3 times, and I think something was going on with the showers. But again, like the first time, it was we have apparatus that is out to the elements that is not good for, certainly not a very expensive piece of equipment like a.
And that's the experience, I think, the general public that that when they need to come to the fire station, whether it's a contractor building a building and or a fire alarm contractor that to review fire alarms or sprinklers, they have to kind of walk into our lunchroom / conference room / training room / repair room, and
it's all encompassing.
And it's all done right there.
That room, that basically not really a conference room. It's a kitchen, in a sense,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Has been used for a multitude of things, including acting as your emergency operations center during the storms. And, yeah. And
when Adele refers to the cobbling together, that was the Firefighters Association through the years getting donations, doing auctions or raffles, and raising money to put additions on the station. The Firefighters Association did that. The building was built by firefighters in '59.
Wow.
So the town didn't build that. It didn't cost the town anything to build that station.
That's impressive.
And when we talk about looking at patching up what we have, we actually had an architectural firm as late as, I want to say, 22, 23, try to give us some kind of a program that would be a renovation of that, in addition of that station on the site where it is. It's extremely challenging. Our footprint nearly takes up the whole lot.
Right.
What they came up with was like a 3-story fire station that really still wasn't going to meet the operational need and performance needs. It really wasn't even close. So it's extremely challenging. And we looked at that option. We tried to figure out how that could happen, and it just really doesn't make sense to put money into that kind of an option because it's not a long-term plan. We'd be spending a lot of money doing that for a short-term solution.
Right. And so we're taping this in April. Residents or voters will be making a decision at town meeting in May, and also at the town annual town election, also in May. We've now received a kind of a updated cost figures. Do you guys know what the working number? We won't get too much into it today. We're doing a separate outreach project for that. But do you guys have a number, and what does that include?
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
So the final projected construction costs, including soft costs and contingencies, is $22 million for a 19,000 square foot building. On top of that, it's going to be another $2 million for the architectural design for construction. Because right now we have a schematic design. We would have to pay for the actual construction design documents, and an owner's project manager, which is basically an independent firm that works for the town to make sure that the architects and the contractors, that they would hire the contractors and make sure that they're communicating and building the building that we want. So all in, it'll be $24 million. The construction cost is $22 million, and the design and management cost is another $2 million.
Got it. And when residents hear that number, they should understand that it's all encompassing, or
it's going to be one number at town meeting and on the election for approval, so that there's nothing else. There's no other costs that are going to come up later.
And in the conversations that you guys have had with the architects, what's one of the biggest factors driving the cost of this project right now?
Like any project, it's building costs, right? It's construction materials and labor costs that really drive it. And as I alluded to, the cost when you're building a fire station, it's not like building some other type of office building. It has to meet certain construction standards to withstand severe weather situations. That's that risk category 4. It has to meet OSHA and ADA guidelines, like most buildings, and it has to, be compliant with the National Fire Protection Association standards for fire stations, so all of those additionally drive the cost of building a fire station over any other building at this point.
Sure. And throughout this,
and I should say, also contribute to the required size. Mm-hmm. That actually contributes to why it is 19,000 square feet.
Got it. And throughout this, process, you guys have, with the architects and the experts, have talked about hard costs and soft costs. And for somebody that's maybe trying to follow along, or will be going to town meeting, just plainly, what do those two terms mean?
Okay. As one of the architects, I put it very simply: if you took the completed building when we're ready to move in, and could pick it up, flip it over, and shake it, everything that falls is a soft cost, and everything that's still part of the building is a hard cost.
Okay.
So essentially, the soft costs are furnishings, equipment, appliances, gear lockers, those kind of things, and all of the not just the actual structure, but any of the wiring and mechanical components, heating, ventilation, those things are all part of the hard costs.
And obviously, beyond the building itself, there's site work that needs to be done, traffic control.
Also all part of the hard costs.
Hard costs, got it.
And, we've discussed, we're working with Mass DOT and got projections from a contractor for putting a traffic control light on Middlesex Road where the fire apparatus would exit onto Middlesex Road, and plans for the apparatus to be able to control that light and the Middlesex and Kendall intersection light, as we do now, when responding to a call.
How did you guys come up with this, get to the design, that portion? I know that was discussed a lot. for those who again may not be have followed this as closely as we have, describe the building to me.
So the building is essentially, one side of it is the administrative area and the staff areas, and the other side is really just apparatus and apparatus bays. We have attempted to use apparatus bays at our drive-through to minimize the having to turn around and back in to the station. So we'll be able to take advantage of that where we can with some apparatus. One of the best examples, I think, of how the committee really worked to come up with a cost-effective or respecting the cost of the fire station is early on we had debate over a single-story versus a two-story design. And the initial single-story design really, had some shortcomings when it comes to operationally how the apparatus would get into the station and how we'd be able to use the grounds. And I think really the committee was split at that point. And the obvious, half of the committee was wanting to look at the two-story layout because that was presented because it had operational advantages. And half of the committee was concerned that a two-story layout had inherent additional costs that we needed to avoid, such as elevators and stairwells that take up square footage and construction material. We worked through that for a couple of weeks. We worked with the architects, and they came out with a design that one-story design that really made us all happy. And I think that's how we've worked through this. We're very cognizant that the town is well aware of their tax increases, and we're respectful of that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, trying to get a building that is going to work for the town for, hopefully 50 years.
That was going to be my next question. Will this design serve the town for the next 50?
I believe it will.
Okay. That's good.
I was just going to say, I think that was one of the considerations. That was a big consideration, right? That we knew that we're experiencing growth, but we didn't want to go down this path in 10, 20 years from now.
Right.
So, what is sort of the future state? And the other thing, too, that I think that the architects and the fire station building committee folks were mindful of is where it's going to go and the aesthetics of what that building is going to look like in the center of town.
Right.
And it's a building that I think I'm gushing, but I think is going to be aesthetically pleasing. I just like the overall vibe of it, and I think that the fire station building committee also feels the same way. And I just think that it would be a good look for the center of town.
Yeah, Adele's referring to, it's going to have a colonial look to it, white siding with pitched roofs, and kind of pay homage to the old Winslow School building that sits there now, as well as be a functional fire station. And actually, the apparatus side of the house kind of reminds you of our existing fire station with some brick face and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with it as well.
So, what exactly will town meeting voters be asked to decide?
We're going to need them to approve the entire cost of the project. So what's going to the $24 million figure will be approving the select board and the fire station building committee to spend up to that amount to complete this project. It requires a 2/3 majority vote of the voters present at town meeting, as well as a simple majority vote at the election, at the ballot, 2 weeks after that. Okay. So it's a 2-vote process, and it's a hurdle to get over.
Right.
And residents have some very legitimate concerns about tax increases and tax increases they've already experienced, and I completely understand that. And it's hard to be able to respond to that, but the need is critical.
You both are residents in this town. You both have lived here for a long time, and putting both your profession aside as residents, as you're talking to folks in the community, what are you guys telling them? You guys have held a lot of community outreach, one-on-ones, I guess, in the last few months. What are you guys telling them about this project?
Well, as a layperson, I'm just telling them, make an appointment, go down there, do a tour. It won't take long, and then you'll see the critical needs for the firefighters who are trying to keep us safe, right? Because that's really what it is. It's all about. This foundation of a community is public safety is a big part of it. And so I think that that's something that I've been saying to my neighbors and people that I know. But again, I was probably guilty of it as well, driving by there and just thinking, oh, there's the fire station, until I really started hearing about things. And that was one of the things that actually had prompted me to run for select board. And I was elected last year, but it was the fire station. That was just something that I thought that was needed, and to try to bring awareness to that.
Okay.
And in addition to that, I think, I encourage people to come to the station, certainly meet with me. My door is always open to any resident, and answer, not only to see the fire station and learn about, why we're looking to get a new station, but also to answer any questions they have. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there on social media, and I'm happy to answer any questions they have. Come and learn about what it is we're doing, and I think the fire department in Tyngsborough has a long history of doing a lot with limited resources, and we'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to respond to the community's needs. And right now we have a need, and we need the community to respond. But come in and ask questions, and I'll answer any questions you have about how our operation works, how the ambulance service works, and how it's been a great benefit to the department and the community. Doors open.
If residents can only, if there's one thing that you want folks to remember from this conversation before town meeting and election day, what would that be? Adele?
That other than that, we do need a new fire station. I think that we would want the town citizens to walk away from this, or to know that there has been a lot of communication and transparency around this project, more so than I've seen in a lot of other instances. And I think that the town management and the select board and the fire station building committee have gone into this with the citizens of this town in the forefront of their mind. And I think that that's really an important consideration, is being as transparent as possible.
Anything more you want to add to that, Chief?
Yeah, I guess one thing that I think citizens should look at, especially when they're trying to comprehend the size of the building. If you look, there are many communities, Pelham, New Hampshire, Groton, Maynard, Massachusetts, Greenfield, Massachusetts. I could probably pull up a couple others. Similar sized communities to us. They've all built fire stations in the last 10 years or so, and they've all been 18,000, 19,000, 20,000, 22,000 square foot buildings. It's not an extravagant building. This is what modern fire stations look like. And the town never built a fire station that was meant to house firefighters. And I imagine, I'm 62 years old. I grew up, raised in Tyngsborough. I have memories of Tyngsborough in the late 60s and the 70s and what it used to be like. And I'm trying to imagine now the firefighters in the 1950s who decided they needed to build a new fire station because the old highway barn that they were housed in down at Perham and Queens just wasn't working anymore. And what they thought was probably going to be a a 50-year building and trying to imagine what the community would look like in 50 years and how they would meet that need. And the building has lasted almost 70 years now, and we're way beyond its lifespan. And when I think about that, I can't imagine what Tyngsborough is going to look like in 50 years. I guess I won't be here to see it most likely, but
No, you don't know
but
that.
we're trying to prepare for that and build a building for that, and that's where we're at.
Well, Chief Russell, Select Person Coughlin, thanks so much for joining Tyngsborough's Front Porch.
Glad to be here.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
You can learn more about this project by visiting the town's website at tyngsboroughma.gov. There, you can see the latest project numbers, as well as any past and current discussions on our video on demand section of the website. Residents will vote at town meeting on May 5th, with a ballot vote to follow on May 19th. For the Town of Tyngsborough, I'm Roni Camille. Thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, wishing you the best of goodbyes.